and white trash talking.
Hi, I'm Doug Johnson, and this is White Trash Talking. Before I begin, please hit the like button, as this will give me more exposure within YouTube's algorithm. So the current phase of the US and Israel's war on Iran began almost 3 months ago, despite the fact that they thought it would end within a matter of days. They thought just drop a few bombs, kill their leadership, and all of Iran will rise up against their government and open the doors to Western control. Of course, it hasn't gone as planned, and Iran is now more unified and galvanized than ever. And despite Trump's claim that Iran's military is destroyed and the war is essentially over, the opposite is true. Iran's large stockpiles of missiles, along with their missile-building capacity, remain intact, buried deep underground below mountains of granite. They continue to sell oil despite U.S. sanctions, and they control the Strait of Hormuz despite Trump's futile blockade and his empty threats. It appears there's nothing the U.S. can do to turn the tide, and Iran has clearly won this war. KJ Noh, political analyst and author at the Geopolitical Economy Report, offers a clear assessment of Iran's asymmetrical advantages that led to this victory.
There are three possibilities. There's bombing, there's boots on the ground, there's blockade. All three have been tried before. All three have been shown that they cannot move the needle. The U.S. depleted its magazine in the first round of war, and it was not able to move the needle. Of course, it killed a lot of Iranians, including 168 school children, and damaged 81,000 structures. But as far as its strategic goals, it was not able to achieve any of them. Now, if it is seriously thinking of boots on the ground, we have to think, there are probably at least 200,000 IRGC, plus another 300,000 reservists, plus another 300,000 plus Iranian army regulars. We're looking at a force of close to 1 million. And in order to invade, you would need to bring in or prepare a force of 3 to 4 million troops. The US would have to stage and prepare that, which it simply cannot do. They could also resume the bombing, which has been shown not to work. And there are essentially 6 reasons for it. There's 6 asymmetries involved. One is geography. Iran has the geographic advantage. The second is the asymmetry of cost. Iran is using, $10,000 drones, and the U.S. has to expend, $5 million interceptors. There's also an asymmetry of strategy. The U.S. is thinking of decapitation. Iran has the mosaic defense. It's a starfish approach. You cannot decapitate a starfish. There's an asymmetry of resolve. Iran has clearly a much, much greater resolve. And then there's an asymmetry of learning. Iran is learning, the US is not learning. It's simply trying the same thing over and over again. And of course, there's an asymmetry of time. The markets and the midterms will not wait, whereas Iran has been resisting sanctions for decades now. And certainly it is dug in for the long haul. So all of these things signal that the U.S. doesn't have much going for it in its corner. If it had, it would have already done that. So really what we have to think about is the U.S. considering the use of nuclear weapons? And the language that Trump has used in the sense of, a civilization will die and, this kind of extraordinary language, you have to wonder if nukes are somewhere on the table.
The question of whether the U.S. would resort to nukes is terrifying, especially as Trump becomes more desperate. The stakes are high for Trump for a number of reasons. One, which KJ Noh mentioned, is that time is running out for the Republicans as midterm elections draw near. But another huge concern is the impending global economic meltdown. This recent article by the Financial Times, which asks, Are we at the tipping point of global energy supplies? Reveals the elite's concern for economic turmoil caused by the Strait of Hormuz closure. KJ Noh puts this crisis in perspective and explains how production of goods in general requires oil.
Well, petroleum is the lifeblood of industrial capitalism. And it's not simply fuel like, natural gas and diesel, jet fuel, and LNG, but it's also the feedstock for the entire global supply chain. For example, naphtha is a petroleum derivative, which is the basic feedstock for most of the plastics, most of the wiring, for rubber, for ink, for everything. Right now, there's a Japanese company that has said that it's going to stop printing color packaging because it, is seeing ink shortages. In Korea, where I was, it was hard to get plastic bags. There's a kind of global shutdown that is rapidly approaching. And something that people don't understand is that, when tankers leave, they move at the rate of a bicycle. Those tankers that left before the start of the war have now reached destination or are in the oceans. And from now on forward, it is going to be complete and total shutdown, in the range of already $1 billion barrel shortfall. This is catastrophic for the global economy. The countries, ironically, that will be less affected are China and the United States. But in terms of feedstock and industrial supply chains, the US will be significantly affected. And of course, we see it in terms of inflation, in terms of pressure on fertilizers and food security. They're cascading effects that are catastrophic, that are just waiting to happen. Even if the Strait of Hormuz were completely opened up tomorrow, we would still be facing massive economic catastrophe. And for it to continue even further will, I think, is essentially an economic nuclear bomb. And so I'm glad to see that, some of the ruling class journals are pointing this out. But, once again, is the ruling elite learning? Are they paying attention to this? I'm not optimistic about that.
KJ Noh fails to include the shortage of things like sulfur, aluminum, and urea that until recently transited through the strait. Urea is necessary, for example, for the production of fertilizer. And now that 20% of it has failed to reach the market, we can expect a corresponding shortage in global crop harvests. I believe that no matter where you live in the world, you should prepare for what's coming. There could be a day when oil prices spike much more dramatically, and we see a run on fuel and basic food supplies. The sudden shock could be traumatic. In my opinion, it would be wise to store a week's worth of food staples and critical household items as a simple precaution. These are dark times, but I'm optimistic that after it passes, things will get better and more peaceful days ahead are waiting for the entire world. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, and please feel free to comment. Bye.